Okay. All right, we're on.
The regular meeting of the 50th and France Special Service District Advisory Board will now begin. Good afternoon. My name is Michael McLaughlin. I will be facilitating this meeting of the 50th and France Special Service District. Before we begin, I'd like to note that this meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021 due to the declared local health pandemic. I will now call this meeting to order and call the roll so that we may verify the presence of a quorum. Board members, when I call your name, please indicate if you are present. Heidi Bing.
Didn't hear that yet.
Say it one more time, Heidi.
Present.
Got it.
There's a little bit of a delay after you hit mute. Robert Sykes.
Present.
Got it.
Steve Young is not present. I will also note I've been joined by Andrew Carlson and David Bauer from Minneapolis Public Works. There being a quorum of advisory board members present, we will proceed. The first two agenda items can be adopted as one item. That would be the proposed agenda, which was distributed in the agenda and distributed in the meeting packet and posted to the city's website. The second item would be the acceptance of the April 1st, 2021 minutes that were also distributed in the packet and posted to the city's website. Would someone like to make a motion to, is there any discussion on those items? Otherwise, someone could make a motion to approve those items if they wish.
Approve the items without objection.
Very good. Is there a second? Eddie?
I second it.
Very good. There being no further discussion, I will call the roll on the motion to approve the agenda as distributed and the minutes as drafted. Heidi Bing. I'm looking for an approval.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I approve.
Yes, very good. Robert Sykes.
I approve.
Very good. Steve Young is not present. Those items are adopted. Thank you. We have not been joined by any members of the public, so we can open and immediately close the public comment period. Our discussion item today is consideration of a revised recommendation for the 2022 work plan and budget for the advisory board or for the service district. Since the group met in April, the 50th and France Business Association reached out to the SSD team in May, indicating that they were in need of some supplemental services to provide services that the Business Association had historically provided, specifically in the form of emptying 10 decorative trash receptacles that are located on the Minneapolis side of the business district, along with watering and providing other weeding and debris removal maintenance for 29 sidewalk planters that the Business Association historically has maintained on the Minneapolis side of the business district. After talking with them and speaking with a third-party contractor that could provide those services, Public Works was able to agree to provide those services on a fee-for-service basis to empty those trash receptacles and provide watering and other maintenance to the sidewalk planters for the remainder of this year, with the understanding that those services would be invoiced back to the Business Association at the conclusion of each month for the prior month's services. The Business Association was appreciative and agreed to concurred with that proposal. So that is what has been happening with the trash receptacles since mid-May, along with the sidewalk planters. I will note that the Business Association did coordinate on their own and install the plant material, the summer plant material for this growing season. So the services provided by Public Works at this point, again, are watering of those sidewalk planters, removal of any debris that might collect in them, and so forth. And then on the trash receptacles, what we have found is twice a week servicing frequency, or the number of times a week the receptacles are emptied, has proven sufficient to ensure that there are not full or overflowing trash receptacles in the district on the Minneapolis side. Fast forward to about 2 weeks ago, as per the agreement, we had the SSD team had sent over an invoice to the Business Association for May services, and the Business Association responded with a request that the SSD would the SSD consider taking on these services going forward, as the Business Association has gone through some transition period, both on a staffing level as well as some financial challenges due to the, as communicated to us, with the art fair being canceled both last year and this year. So that really prompted us to evaluate whether we still had time for the board to consider adopting a revised budget for 2022, a budget recommendation for 2022. We felt that we did have a short window, so that is what brings us all together today, whether the group wants to consider adding these services as part of its 2022 budget. Again, you had adopted a budget recommendation for 2022 on April 1st. So we have that. Also, just to make sure it's clear, the advisory board is under no obligation to take either or both of these service items on. But it does have the ability to, because these are eligible services, if the SSD did want to take responsibility for these services beginning in 2022. With that, let me further describe that, again, there are 10 trash receptacles on the Minneapolis side. We do have a map that we can email to the board so you can see those locations. We do not at this point have a map of the planters, but we know that there are 29 of them on the Minneapolis side. And we can take these one at a time. They do not need to be batched. Let me speak to, because we presume that there would be questions about costs. So I have done some very, sort of rough estimates using costs. We do have other districts that have sidewalk planters, and we have many districts that empty their public trash receptacles. So using costs extrapolated from those other districts, the estimated costs for a 12-month, so annual cost for servicing the trash receptacles twice a week, year-round, all 10 of them, is approximately $4,200. So again, that's an annualized cost. On the sidewalk planters, assuming 29 planters, to remove, so sort of what we typically have, the program we typically have for sidewalk planters is both a summer planting as well as a winter seasonal decor planting. So the estimate for both of those for a 12-month, again, an annualized cost for the sidewalk planters based on a quantity of 29 would be approximately $13,400 roughly. And I'm happy to jump into the details on that. But just to be clear, what's included in that would be planting the planters, getting them ready for a spring planting in May, purchasing and installing the flowers in May, maintaining them throughout the growing season, estimating that we would water them approximately 1 to 2 times a week during the growing season. So that assumes 40 waterings of all the sidewalk planters, which is pretty typical for districts that have sidewalk planters. And then removal of any, if there's any garbage or anything that's collected in them, that would be removed at the time of watering. It would be at the end of the growing season. So think about October when we have that first hard frost. We typically go in and remove the summer plant material. And then typically in early November, we would come in and install the winter greening, which typically is in the form of spruce tips and other, sort of evergreen type decor that is installed and then left in the planters until typically February or March of the following spring. There really isn't any maintenance on the winter side, as you can imagine. We don't have to, obviously water these in the winter. So that all in is what comes out to that, call it $13,500 a year number for all of that, based on a quantity of 29 planters. So, and then just to put it in a context, so the budget that had been adopted on April 1st, both of these services would fit into the district has two major budget line items. One is for district-wide services, and the other is for parking lot operations of the Ewing parking lot. Both the trash receptacles as well as the planters would fit into your district-wide services. So that is what is charged based on a lineal frontage basis to all commercial properties within the district boundaries. The budget recommendation as of April 1st for next year was $92,000. So that was $83,000 budgeted for snow, $5,500 budgeted for sidewalk, litter, and debris management. So that's the pan and broom graffiti abatement and removing the weeds from the sidewalks. And then $3,500. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Graffiti abatement was part of the streetscape maintenance line item of $3,500, along with watering of boulevard trees. So what we would propose, if the group would like to move forward with this request, would be that the sidewalk trash receptacle services would be added to the sidewalk litter and debris management sub-line item in the budget, and that the planter maintenance would fall into the streetscape maintenance and repair line item. So, the rough estimate, combining the two just before we open it up for discussion, would be approximately a $17,500 increase for both trash and planters, assuming full quantity of both. Very much subject to conversation. So just so everyone has line of sight on it, that first line item of district-wide services would need to increase from 92,000 to, we need to add this additional 17,500, or subject to the conversation today, whatever the group decides it might want to do, if anything. So with that, I'll pause, and if you both would like to unmute, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I do have a couple questions.
Please.
Who's going to maintain ownership? Are they going to maintain ownership of the receptacles and the planters, or do we have to accept those?
Yeah, it's a good question. We had communicated that I think we might want to do a little bit more research on this, but the working assumption right now is that they would need to donate those items to the city to be able to maintain. That we may find that isn't the case, but that's the working assumption, as that's what's typically happened in other districts.
Okay. Second question is, throughout the summer, some of the flowers are going to fail. Does this include replanting as needed?
It does not. Oh, go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
We probably should anticipate that might be necessary in order to keep the appearance up that they're looking for. I don't know what flowers they're going to use, but some of them are pretty durable. And then if it's things like you get petunias out there, they need to be plucked to keep them blooming. So I don't know. That would be something to maybe clarify with the vendor.
Yes, good question. So what we have found in the other districts that have sidewalk planters is we tend to zero in on those plants that have the best survivability in a sidewalk planter in our climate zone. typically have not had to replace very many plants mid-season. But what we do find, unfortunately, is that when the plants first go in and they're still small and easy to pluck out, if you will, that sometimes we have members of the public that will remove plants and either take them home, or we've also unfortunately had instances where people don't like flowering plants, so they'll take them out and throw them on the ground. Oftentimes when we see that, if they're still alive, we'll just pick up the plant and put it back in the planter, and we'll try to keep it, resuscitated and keep it alive. But we haven't seen that we have to replace. It's a good question, Bob. But we mid-season we haven't had a lot of plant replacement in the districts that have sidewalk planters now. It's certainly something we could budget for if desired, and it's certainly something we could do. It's just not proven needed so far.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that we just kind of let things happen, and if it needs to be done, get it done, and then we'll have some sense of, what it costs us to budget going forward.
It's prudent.
If that makes sense.
Heidi, did you have questions and comments?
Well, I'm just wondering if we could perhaps have less than 29 planters. I mean, do we need to have 29 planters? That's all I'm just wondering. It's like just to keep the cost down. I think 10 garbage cans is necessary, but I was just wondering how you feel about that, Bob.
Well, since we don't know where they are, and since this has been the practice, I would say we should probably leave it in to start, and then as an advisory board, try to keep an eye on it a little bit and see, as we learn a little bit, and see if that might be something we would want to consult with the business association, see if whether they have objections to us removing some. But for right now, since there seems to be some urgency, I'm going to suggest we stay with what's there.
The number, okay.
First season.
And just a couple thoughts. So one, Heidi, to your question, the board could certainly come back and say, we'll maintain 15 of them, half of them, and that certainly is a possible response that the group could have. So there, it is not an all or nothing proposition. Once the district were to take these over, and assuming that they are donated, certainly as a courtesy, we could reach out to the business association, but they would effectively be transferring all responsibility to the service district and the city of Minneapolis. So while we could, again, as a courtesy, reach out to them and ask for their thoughts, at the end, just so everyone's clear, at the end of the day, the city of Minneapolis would look to the SSD advisory board on what to recommend there. We could not defer to the business association, since it would be an SSD responsibility at that point.
Yeah, of course. I assume that would be the case.
Yep. And just to walk through a scenario, like if the group said, hey, we'll take on 15, just to play it out, like the business association then could decide if they wanted to find the funds to continue to maintain the other 14 in this scenario, or if they wanted to remove them. So there is, again, kind of ways to slice and dice this, just so everybody's clear on what the options are. Part about why, we certainly recognize this would be on a percentage basis a pretty substantial increase, or would result in a substantial increase in service charges going into next year for the district-wide services. So we certainly want to make sure the group understands what all the options look like.
Okay. If we decide that we can't maintain as many, and we want the business association to do it, can they contract with us to do it?
Yes, we could continue the existing relationship that we have right now. So yes. I mean, they would have to agree to continue the fee for service, certainly. So it wouldn't be unilateral,
Of
but
course.
if they wish to, then yes.
So we could actually accept payment from the business association for those receptacles that we won't be billing or assessing for.
Yeah, well,
For
and
the flowers. The flowers, I guess, would be the main item.
yeah, to be clear, that's what's happening now. It's not technically being invoiced by the service district. It's being invoiced by Minneapolis Public Works. We happen to be using the SSD streetscape vendor to provide these services, but so just it's a little nuance. It probably doesn't mean that much, but that's what we are doing now. A fee for service basis. All of this stuff is being done now, and the invoice is being sent to the business association for them to reimburse the city.
Okay. I did want to say something in favor of this. I am assuming that one of the problems that the business association may have run into is their membership may have declined in the face of COVID and in fact, some closing businesses. The good thing about the SSD taking this over is that we can assess so that everybody who benefits from this actually has to chip in through an assessment. So I think this is, in some ways, is better than what was going on before, looking at it from the point of view of property owner in the district.
The business association had been candid with us that another factor, in addition to the loss of the art fair revenue, was the drop in membership due revenue. So that is consistent with what has been described to us.
Yeah, I thought as much. Okay.
I'd be happy, if it's helpful, I could run through sort of what the an amended recommendation would look like if the group was inclined to adopt these, just so everybody had the numbers. Again, normally I would share my screen, but this is going to be less have less utility because you guys can't see it. So I'll just verbally walk through the numbers. So on the if you're looking at the budget that recommendation that had been approved back on April 1, I'll just walk through. I'm sorry, I'm looking for this on my own handout. You will note under district-wide services, the original uses, so I'll start with those. Snow services was $83,000, that would remain. Sidewalk litter and debris management would increase from $5,500 to $9,660 based on these estimates. And then the streetscape maintenance and repair would increase from $3,500 to $16,840. So the total uses would shift from $92,000 in terms of what the budgeted forecast would be to $109,500 for the district-wide services. And then moving up to the sources on the revenue side, the original budget recommendation was had service charges next year for district-wide services set at $106,536. Part of that was to cover a deficit from year-end 2020 of $14,536. So that deficit would remain. That would have to be recouped, and the total service charges line item would go from $106,536 to $124,036 in this scenario.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to email out, if there is a revised budget, we would email the board a revised budget recommendation so everybody had these numbers in front of them in advance of everything going to the city council in September.
Okay. I think that the budget that I have, this is the April 1st budget?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I don't have those numbers appearing on it. I have a total of $143,036 for the charges imposed. But let's see. Oh, I see. You don't have a sum total of the 92,000 and the 40,000 together, so that's where that was coming from. I did notice, this is not related to the current issue, but I did notice that there seemed to be something going on with the parking permits. I can't figure out how $140 a monthly permit fee adds up to 3,500. That's like 25 spaces or 25 months at 140 a month.
It's 25 permits at $140 a month, or $140 a year.
A year. Oh, okay.
Yes.
It says monthly.
Oh,
okay.
It does. That
Oh,
I will.
yeah. Okay. Hence the. So we probably should have that corrected before we forward this. Okay.
So Bob, do you see the line items above that? That's what I was just going through. Do you see where it says sidewalk snow services under line item number one, services, 83,000, 5,500, and 3,500? Those are the numbers that I was just going through.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that you just are adding what the new ones would be.
Yep, I was just adding the estimated costs based on our extrapolated estimate, which is the best information we have, to those existing numbers.
Okay.
So the amended, just to walk through those, the total then, the total service charges for both district-wide services as well as parking lot operations in the 2022 budget recommendation would become $160,536. And just so everyone has line of sight on it, not to dissuade or sway the board members one way or the other, the current year's service charges, so what everybody paid this year combined between line item number one and line item number two, was $131,500. So just so everyone again has line of sight on it, this would result in a increase of approximately 22%.
Okay.
Again, not a reason not to move forward, because they're certainly, as described, there are reasons to consider moving forward. Just since that is a bigger number than is typical for most boards from one year to the next, we just want to make sure that the board understood the implications.
Yeah, I want to say, so I don't know that where those planters are. When you told me there were 29 on the Minneapolis side, I was like, what? That seems like so many. So I do want to, I know Bob, you want to like kind of keep it the same, but I am curious to know if we just spaced them out more and got rid of, just to keep an effort to keep the cost down for them. Like if we did get rid of, 8 of them or 9 of them, would that really make an impact aesthetically? Are people going to miss the planters is what I mean. I don't know. I have never gotten any feedback that people like the planters, they don't like the planters. And then now if people are actually pulling plants out of there, then I'm thinking, oh, well, and that might just be, I don't know, you think like that's just kids, doing it or something. It's not like that's just vandalism, or what do you think about,
Let me be clear.
Like what that is.
That a comment about our experience, that's in other districts that have SSD maintained sidewalk planters. I have no knowledge whether that's happening in the existing planters in 50th and France, because we haven't,
Okay.
This has been a maintenance responsibility for the district. So honestly, it just hasn't been something we would track.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know. Yeah, I mean, my feeling for that is like maybe we can have less planters in an effort to keep the cost down. And I don't know what the number would be, and I actually, I don't know how we could space them out differently and things like that because I don't have a map. I don't really quite know where they all are, but that's what my feeling is.
I agree that that is a possibility. It's just that we're being asked to do this on very short notice. So my thought was to leave it the same. People might not notice that there's less planters, but it does tend to affect the general impression of the area. So I think that's something that we should work with the Business Association about, and possibly even through the year we might be able to make some adjustments. But in terms of budget, I'm thinking maybe we should just budget for it.
Bob, just to build on that point, you could budget for it, so we would assume we were going to service it. But if there are further conversations with the Business Association where, again, I'm making this up, I'll just say the district takes 15 of them, takes over for 15 of them, and the Business Association continues to at least have financial responsibility for the remaining ones. While we are budgeting for it and we'll collect the service charge revenue, if those dollars don't need to be spent because the Business Association continues to accept some financial responsibility for these, I think that's the way I want to say that, but those dollars could then just be repurposed to other line items and or be used as a surplus for future years. So if we don't, just because you're budgeting for the money doesn't mean we have to spend it that way.
Okay.
All right.
We still would, because we don't know that now and we would need a budget recommendation, we'd need to assume a number. And again, if the group could, just again to understand the art of the possible, not make a change in your budget recommendation for 2022, continue the conversations with the Business Association, and a year from now when you're setting your 2023 budget, with more of these details potentially worked out. So you could, basically response could be Business Association, continue your responsibility for this year and next year, but the SSD might consider for 2023. So I just want to, again, describe the art of the possible, not to sway the group one way or the other.
Okay.
How do you feel about that, Bob?
I think that is the way we should go. There's been this tradition on the corner of having those planters, and I think to try to make changes on the fly in terms to make the budget smaller. I don't know if that's really going to work out well long term, because if we reduce the number of planters, where do they go? Does the city or the Business Association then have to take on the maintenance? And I don't know.
It would either
don't have the membership. If they don't have the membership, that may not even be feasible for them, really.
And so that's in this scenario where the group were to say, the existing, the status quo would remain at least through the end of 2022. The Business Association, because these are their fixtures, they would have the ability, they could pull items in, or remove them, store them, so they didn't have to plant them and maintain them. So they would have options just like they do now for these items. So, and if they want to continue the existing fee-for-service relationship, we could do that as well. So by the advisory board saying, hey, we want to, in the scenario where the group would wait until a year from now and think about it for 2023, it doesn't mean the planters and the trash receptacles would have to go away. That would be a business association decision, but we could continue the fee for service arrangement. So.
Let's see. I seem to recall in conversation, Michael, that they did have some capacity if we didn't go along with this. Was that, am I remembering correctly?
We presume they did because, I mean, candidly, in May, they agreed, you know, we mutually agreed on how the services were going to be provided this year. So we certainly presume that they accepted that financial responsibility in good faith, understanding that they would be expected to cover, you know, the financial costs that they said they would incur. So from that, we assume that they have some financial capacity or have the financial capacity to continue to provide these services.
And candidly, I may be coming to your point of view here, but to see if we could, for at least 2022, bill back to the association for a percentage of them.
Well, so we could, then you would need to include something in your 2022 budget if you want to incur any costs, though. If you want the SSD to incur any costs.
Okay.
So,
well,
so it's the same, you know, if you think you might want to incur expenses for either of these services or both of them in 2022, we would need that recommendation today. If you think you want to wait and defer this to 2023, so a year from now when we're setting your 2023 budget, recognizing that would allow for more time more discussion to happen between with the business association. The business association would continue to have their financial responsibility and or the ability to remove some or all of these fixtures to therefore end their expense responsibility, if that makes sense. So they would have that option. They have that option now.
Okay.
Yeah, if we can defer, I mean, Bob, you would feel comfortable deferring it, right? Is that what you're saying? We can defer this till 2023?
I was thinking of trying to do something a little bit in the middle. Yeah.
Okay.
One thought I have is maybe we pick up the trash receptacle costs and they continue with the flowers. I know the flowers are the bigger item, but
yeah.
And then we could discuss, you know, in the coming year before we set the 2023 budget, just what they want to do with the planters, if they feel they need all of them, or what.
That's certainly a possibility, as I said early on in our discussion. Yeah, there's two requests, and they can be very much handled separate from one another. So,
can we break
how
out?
about if we just? Yeah, well, go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, now is the district going to be watering the flowers and so on?
We are, yes, if the district agrees to maintain these, then yes, that would be part of the maintenance is watering them. So if you say the district will take over the responsibility for some or all of the planters, part of that annual maintenance would include the watering.
Okay. I don't know how big an item the planting and spruce top is in terms of cost.
Yeah, so in the numbers that I'm using, the summer plant material, I'm estimating at about $2,600. The same with the winter plant material. That's for all of the planters combined.
Yep.
So that just to give you a sense of sort of how that cost breaks down. The watering costs for the for the growing season are estimated at just about $5,000. I'm kind of rounding these numbers just so everybody has a sense.
Yeah,
And then the remainder of the cost is really the pulling stuff out and putting stuff in, if you will, the labor to do that, in the spring and in the fall.
okay. Not being able to see the numbers that you obviously have.
Yep.
What would the obligation be if we did that fraction? If we did the trash component and did the watering component for the planters, what would that total be?
So business association does everything else, but district agrees to provide the watering only, along with providing, doing year-round trash receptacle service. That would be approximately, let's call it $9,500.
Okay.
Again, I'm rounding up
And-
for conversation
Yeah,
purposes.
and then they would be responsible for buying and putting in the plant material and taking it out at the end of each season.
In this scenario,
Yeah, I want to be clear about that. And in this case, then we're talking about maybe around a 10% increase. Am I in terms of the lineal foot service charges?
it would still be so my quick calculations, the year over year percentage increase would be about 16%. Part of that, though, is you have to recover that 14,000. You have to recoup that 14,000. So that's the thing that's also increasing your service charges, because you have that the 14,000 deficit from the year before. So there's two things that would cause the service charges to increase. They were already going to increase, just so everybody's clear.
Okay. I don't know, Heidi, that wasn't particularly clear to me the first time around, I think largely because things were breaking up. But how does it sound to you if we just did what I was proposing, handle the trash management and then the maintenance
And then the
of
watering?
the planters? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd feel comfortable just doing a smaller percentage of that, and then maybe thinking about it for the budget of 2023, like reconfiguring the number for the planters, and just thinking about it and getting more information about that to make a better informed decision. But I'd be comfortable with that. What you proposed.
Okay. Okay, because we don't know what snow is going to do to us either again this year.
We're also rebidding both of the district's main contracts. The snow contract is actually out on the street right now and is due in a couple of weeks. The streetscape maintenance services will follow in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Okay.
And then if we go ahead with this, Michael, you'll be dealing with the association to let them know what we're doing.
We would communicate what the actions the board took to the business association, explain, provide the background, per the discussion, and then work with them to try to effectuate this, assuming they agree. And if assuming they do agree, we can certainly do this. And then if they don't, then the dollars would again just stay in your budget and be available to spend elsewhere.
Okay. I do have one other point that we probably ought to attend to with this. If we go ahead like this, I think that in 2022, then the association should maintain possession of the waste receptacles and the actual planters. But if we wind up taking over all of it, then I could see accepting it might make sense. Is that possible?
I think I appreciate the point, Bob. I think we just need to do a little bit more investigation. In part because technically the way these things, all these fixtures are out there now is the business association, whether they have one or not, they are technically are supposed to have an encroachment permit. And this therefore is private property that the SSD is maintaining. So I think give us a chance just to connect with the city attorney's office to see what guidance they provide us, understanding the sentiment that if the city doesn't need to accept ownership for a technical reason, that sounds like it would be the preferred way to go. Part of what happens though, and I don't know what the answer is going to be, but there's a liability responsibility that comes with this. And in fact, we are aware of a liability claim related to one of these fixtures that initially came to the SSD, and then we had to explain internally that it actually was a responsibility of the business association. So for that reason, there's just a few things we need to sort out. I'm just being candid. I just don't know the answer to it, but I do know that, part of what happens when you put stuff out, be it an encroachment permit, as a private entity, you are taking all liability responsibility for that fixture being there. So if someone hits it or is injured because that fixture is there, it is your financial responsibility you're responsible for any claims is the way to say it. So sort of gray area in between, we would need some guidance from the city attorney's office on.
Yeah, I would, my guess is that if we're involved with these things in any way, the city is also a target for a suit, even though they may not be found liable. In the end, it's you sue the people who have the money, and the business association doesn't have it.
Presumably they have an insurance policy though that.
Yeah, presumably, we don't know, but yeah, I guess my point is the city would probably be named anyway, just because we're involved with them.
And for that reason, the city may say they need to donate these items. I don't know. I'm speculating on that, to be clear. We would need to, that was something we identified to the business association that would require a little bit more research.
Okay, well, at least the issue has been raised, and we know what needs to be done to start attending to it.
So with that, so we have a formal recommendation. Could I describe the numbers again? And if someone's is comfortable making a motion to adopt a revised budget recommendation for 2022?
Could I make the motion in this way that we, as the SSD, we agree to take on the maintenance of the flowers and the handling of the trash receptacles for 2022, and that the precise estimate of those numbers to be coming from staff to represent those? Or do you have to have numbers?
I think it would be better if I could run through some numbers. What do you guys think?
Okay. And I don't know. I just want to. I want to do what's acceptable.
You're being helpful, Bob. I totally get it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
if you can do it,
we have, I think, a very good estimate in terms of what those services cost, and the goal of today's meeting is to determine whether or not we want to adjust the 2022 budget. Obviously, any of those funds that would not be spent would still be available to the district. So I don't know what further. I mean, this is our chance to modify that budget. I mean, we have already set the public hearing for this. Yeah. So I don't think there's an opportunity to meet again.
Right. No, I think what he's saying is, are we comfortable with them allowing us to set the final numbers since right, Bob? That was the way you.
That was my point, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Well,
And if we need actual numbers, I guess we could ask Michael to do some fast math here and.
yeah, why don't we do that just to cover bases? Why don't I recite a proposed revised budget amount, and then Bob, if you wanted to make a motion to adopt a revised 2022 budget recommendation as stated. How's that sound?
Okay, and you're going to just throw these into the two items that are already there, the litter and debris management, and then the maintenance and repair. Okay.
So what I'm about to do is I will walk through the line item amounts that will be reflected in the final budget that will be presented to ratepayers and to the city council. So for budget line item number 1, district-wide services, under sources, service charge revenue would be $116,216. The applied surplus, in this case, the applied deficit from 2 years prior, will remain at $14,536. There is the 2021 surplus amount is not yet known, so that will remain at 0. So the total sources would be $101,680. On the uses side, again, still under.
Wait a minute. That's at the this 101 is lower than the 116. How do you get that? Or I'm not following you.
Yeah, because one is a positive number and the deficit we subtract out. So the service charges are not the same as the sum total that I just read.
Okay, so those are the available funds then.
Yep.
Okay.
And the reason we do that is the 101,680 is going to match the uses, the sum of the total uses.
Okay.
So total uses being sidewalk snow services, $83,000. Sidewalk litter and debris management, $9,660, and streetscape maintenance and repair, $9,020. So the total uses will be $101,680, which equals the total sources, the total net sources is the best way to describe it, of $101,680. That all total then, when we add the parking lot operations service charges, the total service charges imposed in 2020, in 2022, excuse me, would be $152,716.
Okay.
And so if someone would like, Bob, if you want to make a motion to adopt the revised budget recommendation with the line items as stated, I think that would work.
I will so move.
Is there a
And I
second?
second it.
Any
Am
further?
I muted?
Nope, you're on. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you for checking. Any further conversation on the motion? Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will call the roll on the motion to adopt a revised 2022 budget and work plan recommendation. Heidi Bing. On the motion. We're voting.
Oh, am I? Okay, yay.
Robert Sykes.
Yay.
And Steve Young is not present. So very good. We have a revised 2022 budget recommendation. This will be reflected in the proposed operating plan that is mailed to all SSD chargeable ratepayers in late August or early September, in advance of the public hearing that will be held in September. And we, as stated, we will email to the group the revised budget so everybody has it, the budget recommendation, and we will communicate both the outcome of today's meeting as well as the discussion highlights to the business association and continue to work with them towards a solution both for the rest of this year, which is already in place, and for next year. Any other items the group would like to discuss? Otherwise, we can adjourn.
I have no further items.
I have nothing further.
Very good. With that, we will thank you both for your time, and we will adjourn this meeting at 2:09. And we will send out further information via email.
Very good.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Michael.